dude, I feel like everybody's right and everybody's wrong.
100%. Why is this important? Why are we even going here? He's helped a lot of guys. He's also not had success with a lot of guys.
Come in with a purpose, and they're very intentional with what they do and how they do it.
From the majors to the sandlot, baseball and softball share space in one place. Welcome to the farm system.
Fellas, and the ladies, welcome back to another episode of The Farm. We are sitting down with my girl Shonty. We are gonna go through so many things. I wanted, first off, for everyone, just to get to know a little bit of like who you are. And we're gonna kind of talk a little bit more about your story too. But why don't you give us like just a quick intro and yeah, we'll go from there.
Well, I'm Shonty. I play for the University of Utah. I'm a shortstop, and I'm from Hawaii originally, and then I just recently moved to Las Vegas, maybe 2 summers ago, I think. And I've kind of just been back and forth between Hawaii and Vegas, but
Nice.
Vegas is home now, I guess. And yeah, I started playing baseball from when I was 5 all the way until I was about 13. And then from there, I never really wanted, I hated softball. I hated playing with the girls for some reason, and then had to go because I was just getting older. So I started playing softball at about 14.
Okay.
And then now college, 18.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, no, I was gonna ask you that too, because I know we talked about that. It seems especially shortstops. A lot of shortstops usually play baseball for a really long time, especially premier shortstops. Now, it isn't obviously the case with every shortstop, but if you take someone like Taylor Pleasance or something like that, right? She played baseball. Her brother was a really good baseball player too. She took ground balls with the boys every day.
Yeah.
Again, when she fields, she looks like a guy out there fielding. Yeah. Very smooth, very athletic, a lot of those things too as well. And then we talked about that too. Obviously, a big difference between the sports is there's a smaller ball that softball girls use when they're younger, but it's still bigger than a baseball.
Yeah.
And typically girls have smaller hands, and so a lot of times it messes up their arm path and a lot of things that we talked about, as well as when you're throwing a baseball when you're younger too. It's they seem to also have pretty good arms. But I was going to ask you, with that, what made you want to play baseball just from the very get-go and not just go into softball?
Well, I have a younger brother. He's about 11 months younger than me, so we're kind of the same. So we played t-ball together. Our parents just put us in t-ball and just let us play together until we couldn't. And then it wasn't actually appreciate that my parents did that for me, because it opens you up to competition and just playing with the boys as a girl. It's I don't know, you get this competitive mindset because the boys are always stronger than you. And even though I wasn't a shortstop in baseball, I played outfield and I pitched. It was the fundamentals you get from baseball and learning from the boys. It's it's not something you can get from playing softball when you were t-ball age, pee-wee age.
Yeah, no, and a difference though too as well is, we talked about that a little bit when you first came in, was that you pitched, right? So that's it's one thing to play baseball.
Yeah.
It's a whole nother thing. Obviously baseball pitching, it's different for even a position player. If you've never pitched in baseball, as a position player and you get on the mound, it's completely different there. And then obviously in softball, you guys don't pitch, everything, being a completely different motion, everything else is very different. So it's having a whole nother, skill set from that too. What'd you kind of take away from pitching and kind of getting to go that route?
I mean, I think my arm was kind of just strong from being an outfielder, and just growing up, I played a lot of sports with my brothers, my cousins. We were always outside throwing something. And I feel what I took away from pitching is competing. Yeah. I feel every pitcher, to be a great pitcher, you have to have that competitive mindset. Think of Najee Kennedy. You can see the passion and the drive that she has every single pitch. And as an opposing player who plays against her, it's intimidating almost, because you can see the passion on her or great pitchers. Yeah. And yeah, I think that's what I kind of got, and I just kind of took it to the field with me.
Yeah, I love that. I was also getting, I know one of the things I was going to bring up is there's a big cultural difference, obviously, from like being from the island compared to being over here, and I think there's a lot of benefits to a lot of the culture as well. So I kind of wanted you to open that up of just growing up, because did you grow up were you like born and raised completely in Hawaii the whole time?
Yes.
So I was gonna have you say that, like, kind of growing up in Hawaii, like what would you say, especially now that you've been over here, and I know that Vegas represents the entire United States, right? But you got to spend some obviously time in Utah, right? You've gotten I don't know where else you've been in the states of like actually living.
Yeah.
But what would you say, like, just like culturally, like you really picked up from just being over on the island?
I feel like being from Hawaii, everything's like family culture. Like, you pretty much know a good amount of people on the island, and it's like there's this like vibe around the island that's just like super, I don't know, like it just feels together.
Yeah.
Like everything feels together. And then sometimes there'll be like moments in Hawaii where there's just not togetherness, but then everyone knows that's not Hawaii. I feel like growing up in Hawaii, I think it's like a different culture. I feel like I don't know how to explain it.
Yeah.
Except the vibe, and like it's good to grow up in Hawaii and learn the morals, and like I think parents, like, I don't know, like the old timers, like they just like it's what they bring to the table. And I feel like it doesn't have to be like a certain family. It's just every family has like a kind of sense on like the aloha spirit. Like aloha spirit that like we have in Hawaii, we share. But yeah, I think for sports wise, it's different because granted we're like on an island, secluded, like a lot of college coaches go to like main cities like California, Las Vegas, wherever. So like it's like they go there to do their recruiting because there's not really like there's a fair share of really great athletes in Hawaii, but most of us have to like travel with like our club teams or like any team to just get up here and get in front of coaches. So I think that's the hard thing about being from Hawaii is that you don't get the like eyes that people from up here do.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. And also too, I'm sure it's a tough sell to your if you're out of college to be like, oh yeah, I think I need to go recruit in Hawaii. That's what I need to do. Pay for my trip over there.
Yeah.
Let me go spend some time out there.
I think a lot of coaches like coming to Hawaii because recently there's been a lot of like coaches that come down to Hawaii and like they do it like a part-time vacay, but also like recruiting. Like my coach Amy Hogue, she loves coming to Hawaii. Like her second base or her shortstop in college was from Hawaii. And so she kind of just like, Hawaii was on her like map. And then me and there's another Hawaiian on the team right now. And then next year there'll be two more. This upcoming year, there'll be two more. So we're kind of like expanding our Hawaiian. So for sure. Yeah. And then like even other schools, like there's been a lot of Hawaiians in like Division I, Pac-12, like other Power Fives.
Yeah, no, for sure. And that's what I was going to bring up too as well is, I know obviously, because you mentioned it a little bit earlier, like I said, like growing up and like always being outside. And I was going to say that is like one of the things that, and again, I've never even been to Hawaii, which I need to, you need to take me if I go. But also too, the other part of that is I know that there's like a big connection to like the land, right? Is like in the sense of like, or from what I've taken from a lot of the Hawaiians that I've played with or, things like that from culturally as well. And I was just going to ask you kind of like about that, right? Is like, not only is like the weather, and like where it's not 110 outside and all of that as well, but like, there is so many different, obviously it's a tourist destination too, where everybody wants to come and visit, and it's so beautiful in so many different areas that you can go. And then also too, I know a lot of people also just kind of like Vegas, you have the Strip, right? And it's like, and I know in Hawaii, like there's some like tourist areas where it's like, okay, these are big tourist areas comparatively to like, people that are more indigenous, like to the area. And like, just like in Vegas too, people think it's like the Strip. And it's like, well, no, you mean there's families way outside, right? The Strip is like, you can get, if there's no traffic, you can get through the whole Strip in probably, 15 minutes max, So it's like there's, in Vegas from end to end now, it wasn't like this when I was growing up. But Vegas from like end to end now, it's like you could be driving for over an hour,
Yes.
on the freeway and you're still in Vegas, right? So, I just kind of was going to bring that up to you, is like how that was, like you said, so many different sports and like, doing all of that, how that was kind of different too as well. I feel like your guys' childhood is probably a little different than ours, outdoorsy a little bit.
Yeah, I feel like what you were saying about Las Vegas, every time I tell someone I'm from Las Vegas, they're like, you're like clubbing like all the time. And I'm like, it's not just that. And I'm like, where I live, it's like I can't even like see the strip. And like, even though I'm like only 15 minutes, it's like it doesn't seem like Las Vegas strip,
different world,
drinking, all of that. And I'm like, no, like it's not just that. And I'm like,
you stay in a condo, or like no,
like I'm not like looking down at all the lights all the time. Like it's kind of quiet. But in Hawaii, I feel like with the sports, like I feel like our parents, like they put you in sports so that you can gain all of these like skills from like different sports. Like they'll put you in soccer, or they'll put you in like track to just get in shape, or like I played flag football, so I kind of have like I don't know, I've played a lot of sports, even basketball and like volleyball. Like I feel like my parents did that at a young age, and as I'm getting older, like when I was about like 14, 15, I had to like narrow it down to like the ones that I really wanted to like pursue.
Yeah.
And that happened to be softball and like basketball, but then I stopped basketball in high school. And then I think for all of my siblings, my parents did that for me and my sibs. But yeah, it just helps you to get all these traits that you can use in your sport for later.
Yeah.
And it's just that one level up from all the others.
How about when it came into, obviously you guys have a ton of access to water, like around, right? How did that look like for you too? Like, were you like, and again, I always think about this too, is like people, Taylor knows this, she laughs every time someone asks me this or something like that, and they're like, oh yeah, like let's go on a hike, and I'm like, no. like I've lived many places where it's like there is some beautiful hikes and some other things to go and do, and just because you live somewhere doesn't necessarily mean that. But I know that, again, I wanted to ask you that too as well, is like when you growing up, like again, is that something that you guys really, I mean, obviously, you have so much area for beach, but also too there's within the land, like there's all of this water that's running through and stuff like that, where actually, and the reason I'm bringing this up too is one of my friends grew up, was born and raised out here, and then moved to Hawaii, and she's always posting that she's at these gorgeous waterfalls, and she's at all these other places, and I was like, man, it's so cool, because that's just a whole different thing than like growing up in Vegas. Like we don't have just waterfalls everywhere. Like, you can go and like go to these, gorgeous like natural, springs, or, whatever they would be called. But so how did that look like for you when it came to like some of that stuff?
Well, I was never a hike person either. Like, I feel like growing up in Hawaii, you take advantage, like I don't know, like you don't go to the beach as much because you like
it's like the strip.
Yeah, like
in some ways.
It's so accessible that you don't even like take advantage of going.
Yeah,
and when I go back now, I'm like, I want to go to the beach. Like I want to do all these things because I don't have access to them anymore.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's the same with hikes. Like I never really went on hikes. Like I'm like, no, like I'm tired from the workout or whatever, but I'll go to the beach and chill. Yeah. I feel like, I surf, I bodyboard. Nice. When I go back, and just like, it's just kind of the vibe around the beach is better than going into the mountains. I mean, the mountains are great. Like, it's just I'd rather go and be in the sun. And I think. Well, I went on this hike. It was like it's a story about like conditioning, and there's this really like tough hike. It's called Coco Head, and my coach when I was like 14, it would be our mental training conditioning day, and we would do the hike, and it's insane. Like Coco Head Trail, it's like dirt, like steps all the way up the mountain, and then we would do that and come back down and then hit after, and I'm like dead. But that's just like one of the stories about a hike, and like it was kind of crazy. We did that like every Wednesday
Every Wednesday.
I knew that hike at the back of my
Jeez.
hand. Yeah,
Jeez.
it's crazy.
Yeah, no, and that's why I was bringing that up because like the same thing. Some people might think that's crazy because, like you said, when they go to visit Hawaii, they're like, "Oh, I want to go see these gorgeous things," like and there's so many things as well. But like, it's the same way with me in Vegas. Like, I swear to you, like, I really don't know much about the Strip. I don't go there unless I absolutely have to if there's something going on. Right? It's like living in New York. It's like again, like when you go to these tourist areas,
Kind of
everybody's
avoid it.
yeah, because everybody on the Strip, everybody's looking up and they're in awe and all these things. But it's like the traffic's bad, people are in the way, they don't know where they're going, taxis are everywhere. It's not again, it's not like it's not how they would perceive where it's like that's not an area for like a family or like everyday living, right? It's this is it's built for tourists, right?
Yeah.
They come in, right? And so it's a very different environment and it's cool. Like again, like for example, when I say I don't know much about the Strip, I'm also in comparison to what, right? Like for example, if I went over to Hawaii, far more where we could go in Hawaii than I would, right? And when people say that too, like they come to town, I could give you far more information about the Strip than you probably know. But at the same time, there's some people that like that's what they do. They're hikers, right? Or they're there's people that like again like my brothers. Where they work on the Strip every day, right?
Yeah.
They know every casino. They know exactly where you are. They know all the back streets to get to everything, right? And it's like, it's just a very different lifestyle, right? Like my one brother, like again, he was going, and still in some regard still goes to clubs and does all this stuff. And it's like, I couldn't even tell you where the clubs are located. Like, and so there's a lot of that, too as well. And I think that's why I was like asking that as well. It's like, there's obviously, just because, again, I grew up in Hawaii doesn't mean I'm a hiker, right?
Yeah.
Doesn't mean that like,
Doesn't mean that I go to the beach every day or live in a hut.
Yeah. But also at the same time, right? Like there's a lot of people that don't know how to surf. There's a large amount of people that don't, like a lot of the bodyboarding and like all those other things, right? Like I don't know how to surf, right? Like, but again, you probably went to the beach more than a lot of people, like, especially if you're more like inland and in the United States of with it, right? So it's like, obviously, Hawaii, you have an island and you have all these access points, right? But also too, again, the rest of the United States, a lot of like inland, they might not see a beach their entire life, or they might not have any access to a lot of, water. And then it's obviously very different if it's like a lake compared to like the ocean or waterfall or something like that. It's very, very different of the skills that you obviously will pick up or what you find as well. And but then I was also, like you said, I was interested with that as well because I've had opportunity where I played with some Hawaiians and actually my buddy, I think Taylor met him when one of my junior college friends, Kakai, we used to play together in junior college, and so he's in Hawaii now. Yeah, so he's in Hawaii now, and I don't know where he lives, but he came and visited. He was in Vegas. He used to live in Vegas for a little while too, and I don't know why too. I don't know why Vegas is like a place for like a lot of Hawaiians like come and live.
Yeah, I feel like recently like Hawaii's prices are just kind of getting out of hand.
Yeah,
and like there's just so much more opportunities here for like younger kids getting recruited or like like I know a lot of football boys that I've known from Hawaii that move up here and they go to like Liberty or like Gorman.
Yeah.
And I just think Las Vegas, everyone's like a lot of Hawaiians are moving here, so like Hawaiians want to go where Hawaiians are. Yeah. Because they have that culture and that vibe that we kind of like. And even though not everyone from Las Vegas is like Hawaiian. Yeah. But like in certain places, like I'd say like a good part of Henderson or like Southern Highlands is like a lot of new houses and like Hawaiians that are coming in. Yeah. So like even my neighborhood is like our host street is like from Hawaii.
That's funny.
Or like have connections. So it's like a good vibe around, you know?
And also too, I don't have no comparison, but I was just going to say this. There's some, from my view, there's some good Hawaiian food here in town. Yeah. So I was going to say, like,
there is, yeah.
Yeah, you know, and I love that about Vegas, period, is because, you know, from anywhere, like there's people from Philly that, you know, like they got their own Philly cheesesteak place here, right? There's people straight from New York, you know, like where it's like, you know, you can get, since it's such a luxurious, like, you know, travel destination, the food here, like you can get some really good food, like anything too as well.
I agree.
You know, and I think so. I think that's also, you know, a big piece that I loved about that too. I know from the same side of this is actually super interesting as well. Is, you know, when you came in and started, and just so everybody kind of gets on the same page with us too as well, this is the first off season, really the first month that I've gotten to train you, and then also me personally, I really haven't gotten to train you. You know, it's you and Cody been really working together a lot to this point, and but you know, when you first came in, we started talking a lot about is like you already doing a lot of the things or knew a lot of the terminology that we used or some of that stuff too, just because of your coaching staff over at Utah as well. So I was going to have you kind of like bring that up too, as before, you know, even knowing anything about us, just like, you know, some of the concepts are like water bags or farm boards or any of the things that, you know, kind of how did that, when you went over there, like what was that process kind of like, and like, you know, how did that all come together?
Well, shout out to my Coach Courtney Martinez.
Yep.
She's been kind of with you and like watching your videos, and she really likes the way you guys train because it's just, you guys are so knowledgeable and like you guys get to do this every day. And so she kind of respects that. And going into Utah, like she brought out these like water things and we were like, what the heck is this? Like just throwing them around and like not really knowing what to do with them, and we kind of like dreaded it. Like she would make us do it before hitting, and we'd be like, why are we doing this?
Doing it. Yeah.
And they're heavy, like
and they're tiring.
And they're tiring. They make you tired. So like we don't really want to feel like that. But then as the season went on, she would start explaining it and like how it works and how it's gonna work in your swing. And then it started making sense to us, and it would be incorporated into every hitting session, hitting practice, like BP. Like before we get on the field, it's like do your water bags, and like she really enforced it on us. And we did farm boards, we did PVC pipe swings. She even put like water in the PVC pipes.
Yeah, we have them.
And like she just like influenced us, and like she's really good at talking, and so we're really good listeners at Utah. And like I just feel like she brought that to us. And then I was talking to her how I didn't have a place to train this summer, and she was like, oh yeah, there's the farm is here, like in Las Vegas. And I was like, dude, that'd be kind of sick. And I know, like I didn't know the farm.
Yeah.
And then I looked, like I would see the board and it's like the farm system. And I'm like, oh, that makes so much sense.
That makes sense. That's
I was like, it's not just like a brand that sells stuff. They like train athletes. And so I reached out to you, and I reached out to Tay, and I was just like, I kind of need a place to train, and you guys kind of made it work, which I'm really grateful for. And
of course. No. And I was going to say that as well is like, I've trained so many athletes now, and one of the things is it's fun with athletes. That's what I was telling you yesterday. Like I was excited for us to get some time to train together too, is because like I'm a thinker. Like when I played, I was a thinker.
Yeah.
You know, again, almost to my deficit at times is like I wanted to know. I was the why kid.
I was the why kid too. I am the why kid. Still.
Yeah. So that's why I was bringing that up was, you know, for example, is you have a really good feel for your body and like understanding, like you will not only just terminology. And again, that's what I was saying, like just shout out to not only your coaching staff, but also you just as well, right? Like there's athletes that really understand where their body's moving through space, typically shortstops. And the nerd side of it is called kinesthetic awareness, where it's like you guys are really good at ping pong. You guys can shuffle or juggle, or probably shuffle too. but all, like, again, there's a lot of these things where like you have these fine tune like skills and these fine motor skills, right? And understanding, again, the proprioception side, which is like knowing where your body moves through space, which is what this high level of athleticism, right? And then because of that, though, I know that like as you've been coaching and as Cody's been coaching, he's been telling me too as well. It's like he'll say some of the things that you've said to him, and he's like, he gets excited too, because it makes it not only more fun, but also too we can learn things quicker because you have so much feel for your body. We don't have to develop feel first and then go there, right? And so not only that, but then if you match that as well, not only for your feel, which makes it fun, but then the other side of that is then again, you're smart, right? So as you put it intellectually together, not just feel, but okay, thinking through this and being like, okay, I'm doing this because of these reasons, and this is like my method, and this is why we're doing these things. And like, again, a lot of athletes too. I've coached plenty of athletes that don't care, right? And they're just like, tell me what to do. I'm going to do it. I don't need to know why.
Yeah.
You can be the nerd. I'll be the, I'll just be the one that just, does whatever the heck you tell me to do. But also too, like you said, is the reason that we, even with that coaching style, like, yes, some athletes, maybe they don't take in everything that we talk about, right? Like I always tell them, like, again, like I am the nerd, like, I'm going to know all the science behind all the things, right? But at the same time, and maybe I'm saying it to you, but you don't need to understand and be able to like know everything that I know to be able to, drive the car, basically, right? You don't need to know how to put a car together to drive it here, right? But at the same time, if you know that there's a reason and there's a rhyme or reason about why we're training this way, and then like, especially if we've had a conversation, like let's say it's water bags or something like that, and we're like, hey, like, this is because it develops this, and again, we're trying to load athletic movement, right? And we're trying to build you guys to be better athletes. And like, for example, you did a lot of that where you played multiple sports. And, again, for example, like surfing is really athletic. Like bodyboarding is really athletic. Like these are things that you got to have a lot of feel from where your weight is in your body, right? Like if somebody was like a snowboarder or something like that, like all of these things, especially I would say when you're dealing with water specifically, right? Like you got to be very mindful of your balance and where you are on the board and where your center of mass is, right? If you're leaning too far forward or if you're too far back, or, and then also you're about to get hit by a wave, and like how you maneuver through those things and manipulate your weight. So it's like a lot of that it overlaps. And I've seen, I actually had a coach that I really liked a lot of his stuff is, he's a pitching guy out in California. His name is Lance Wheeler. And he was a skateboarder. And so he talks a lot about how, again, he talks about athleticism and a lot of these things about how, skateboarding is like really athletic. Like you got to be able to have a lot of control over your body, and also too, an understanding where your body is in space, right? And so I think that that's also been a bigger piece is when we talk about getting buy-in, where you're not going like, okay, like, especially if something's really taxing, you got to have a reason why I'm doing it if it's going to be, something taxing on me. And so one of the things that I do see though with the water bags quite a bit, and I saw this when I went out to Oregon, is Oregon, for example, like when we first started talking to them, they had already seen kind of water bags. They had gotten their own water bags, right? But they were filling them up too much and they were really heavy, right? And so, because again, when it's really light, you're like, well, everything else is kind of the opposite, right? When you're in the weight room, it's like, well, we want to get, loaded as much as we can and do all these things. But a lot of times, again, along with it, when we're developing like athleticism, like if you can't move fast, well, then you're eliminating kind of what we're trying to do in the first place. And, that's a big thing with us as well. It's like, we don't need, like most of those water bags that we have out there are probably like max, like 6 pounds maybe, but a lot of them are even lighter than that. And again, a big reason for that is you got to be able to, be athletic and move, right? And go through these forceful, rotations and all these things, as well. And then, like you said, they are really taxing because you have the deceleration side and you have again, I'm getting super nerdy with the when you get into the side of like creating stretch across your body and like decelerating and having this tissue lengthen as you rotate and stuff like that. Those things are really taxing on your body. Like the eccentric portions, like think about it when you're squatting. The down part is really taxing, right? It's a lot easier just to stand up, right? It's a lot easier. It's a lot easier when you have to control, a lot of that weight. Don't get me wrong. We're a lot stronger on our eccentrics, like being able to control weight down, because someone might be like, man, when I'm at the bottom of my squat and I'm standing up, that feels like the hardest part. And it's like, yes, but at the same time, it's really taxing to go down, right? And control that weight going down. And so, for example, if you have the water bag and you go up to like the other side of your body and you swing it from your hip, right? And we swing it to the top. Yeah. That really, again, that lengthening of that tissue like across your body is super taxing on your nervous system, is super taxing on those things. So it's like for you, literally, like you're saying, is so many athletes when they first start using some of that stuff, or
they don't know how to use it.
Yeah, or farm boards, right? Farm boards the same way. You get on the farm boards in the beginning, they're frustrating.
Yeah.
Right?
And you always feel like, like even the double farm board, like you feel like you're just gonna like overexert it, or like your legs just gonna like slide
out.
But like you have to like learn how to do it before, so that you don't hurt yourself, so you don't like hurt your arm when you're doing these water bags.
Yeah.
And like, yeah, you just ought to know before to keep you safe.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's the big thing, like you mentioned with it, right? I say that with like water bags and anything else, right? It's like a barbell. If you got to know what you're doing with it, right? It's just a tool, but like how you use it is super important, right? And so there's a lot of people that have water bags now. They don't do a lot of the things that we do with them, right? But it's just like, you know, you have a barbell, that's great, but like, what do you do with it, right?
Yeah.
How do you utilize it? And so that becomes, you know, big from that side. But I was going to say, for you specifically, right, is, you know, a lot of athletes, they might have our tools, right? They might have farm boards, they might have water bags, they might have, you know, some of these other things. I'm going to talk about some other things here in a minute, but you actually have obviously have had the opportunity now to come in like train in house, and you know, it's obviously first month, it's not, you know, crazy in, but I know that you've also gotten to experience that as well. So why don't you kind of, you know, walk, you know, us through kind of like what that's been like, just training in house, since you've obviously gotten to train for years, right? And train in so many different ways. What has kind of been your, you know, experience so far, just, you know, getting to train actually here, like in person?
I feel like training here in person with like you and Cody, it's like you get firsthand feel on like how you're doing it. And like, I just feel like there's a more sense of trust because knowing that you guys are nerds and like, you know what we're doing wrong.
Agreed.
So like, we don't really like, I don't know, like we don't fear on asking questions.
Yeah.
Because we're just going to go out there like fail and then like ask, and then we know that you'll give us like a prime answer for us to like go do it. I think when I come in here, I do like water ball chops with the farm board, or like heavy bag, and like I just feel more comfortable, I feel. And then having access to it's just kind of awesome. And like Cody would just bring out some random thing and I'm like, what is that?
Yeah.
And it's like, wow, like Cody's really on it. He's real snappy.
Yeah. No, he's good. No, and then I also heard, a little birdie told me that you've gotten the chance to be hitting the new heavy balls the heavy machine balls that we had that have now. We had some prototypes that we were using, but we got our big order in with them, right? And so, I mean, before we maybe get to the heavy machine balls, the first thing I talked to you about when you first came in, I was like, hey, like, have you hit our normal machine balls yet? And, you know, we started talking about that because one of the things, as I was telling you, as we were traveling across the nation, I was going to all these different schools, and I was looking at the softballs that these guys are hitting on the machine.
Horrible.
And they're awful. And one of the big things people don't understand, if you're a baseball guy and you're like, I don't understand the machine problem. Like, what do you mean it's so bad? In softball, it's really bad because the laces on a softball. Can you toss me this softball right here? Sorry, I'm not making you reach for it. But so the laces on a softball are really like raised out of the ball, right? So through a machine, everybody's blaming the machine, going, "Oh, the machine is making this ball move so much; it's so inaccurate." Yeah. But what it is these laces are so big.
Yeah. And
so when they catch the wheels, I mean, they do crazy stuff. So for a long time now, you guys haven't used normal softballs through the machine. Like, you know, there's always been kind of, not always been, but for a long time, they've been using some type of machine ball in softball because you can't put a normal ball through because they do crazy. I mean, you could get hit by a ball. Like, I mean, it moves a lot,
I've
you know?
had my fair share of crazy machines go gnarly. But yeah, I feel like I've used dimple balls. Yeah. Like machine balls. And like they were never really great.
Yep.
Like it would go everywhere. Like it doesn't matter. And when I'd used the farms machine balls, like it was actually pretty consistent. Like it was really consistent. And I was just like, I'm just getting like a ball down the middle every single time. Like there's no chance that it's a ball. Yeah. And then I used the heavy balls and it's like kind of the same thing, but heavier.
Yeah. Yeah. What was your, I know you got to hit them almost exclusively the other day, you know, quite a bit with it. So what would you say is your biggest as a hitter? Because when you pick them up, you know, they're an ounce and a half heavier. So it doesn't feel crazy different, but then when you hit them, there's some pretty significant difference of like how you feel when you hit.
Yeah.
So why don't you kind of just explain like what you noticed from the normal machine balls compared to the heavier machine balls? Like what was your biggest sensation like when you were hitting?
Well, picking them up, it was obvious. One was heavier, and I felt like it was easy to hit, but once you start getting out of like your body and like overswinging or like underswinging, like the heavy machine ball won't like go where you want it to go or like look good, because you need to put more power in it. It's just like hitting regular heavy balls, like just front toss. It's like you slice it and like it'll just like flare.
Yeah.
But like I feel like with the heavy machine balls, you have to really focus, and like you can't just like take off it in a swing, because then it's just not going to produce the way you want it to.
Yeah, like you got to like really square it up.
Yeah.
And you got to stay through it, right? Like if you yank or like anything, like you said, your back kind of comes through and clips the ball at all.
Yeah.
It like you get this big deflection,
Yeah,
you know? And
exactly.
so, and then like you said, because it has more weight behind it, well, then you also got to hit it with more force, right? So, like your force that you transmit into the ball is really important. Your spacing is really important. Your direction is really important, which, for us, those are 3 big pillars of how we view hitting. And so, I know that that's a big thing too as well. It's like, again, that could be such a great training tool, is because of that, right? Where it's like, you can't just, clip a ball and, like hit it far, put a lot of force into it. So I know that that's a, bigger piece, too as well. The other thing, like you brought up as well, a lot of dimpled balls in the space. And again, with softball, because this is how, again, we didn't just like come up with balls that come up with balls. Like we came up with balls because I thought the other options were not good.
Yeah.
And so like we were kind of forced to, and I was like, man, we got to have some better, especially for softball. Like baseball, there's some options, but like I feel like we still created the best options that were out there. That's why we went with these balls first. But then softball, I mean, it was
awful. Yeah.
awful, right? So I was just like, man, like I can't even train our hitters with these. Like the balls are so
just
inconsistent.
dangerous.
It's just like not even useful to like go off the machine a lot of the times. It was just too erratic. And so especially too, especially how we do training where you're like really focused on changing your patterns or how you're moving and like working on something. It's like the ball is all over the place all the time. It's just like this crazy variable, and don't get me wrong, there's a time and a place to work up to like, obviously like more live pitching and it's going different directions, but people don't understand this about machine. And again, credit to you guys too, as well, because people undervalue this. When a pitcher's on the mound and she's throwing different pitches, it's not all coming out of like the same slot necessarily, or like again, like there's slight variances where like when someone's throwing to you, you can kind of time her moves, you can pick up on certain things, and there's some of that. But what makes a machine so hard is it's coming out of the exact same spot and then doing like crazy different spreads or different pitch types. So like I think like with that is people undervalue that a lot, where it's like when you're really trying to work on something, again, like how useful a machine ball can be, from that way of like being able to be consistent.
I feel like it's harder. Like I feel like regular machine balls and like regular machines, like it's good when you're just trying to like get live hitting, and like when they're going all over the place, like you can take a ball, you can hit a strike, or like pick a pitch you want to hit. But if you're trying to work on something really specific, like it's hard. Like it's frustrating when the ball isn't like in place, and then I also can't get my swing down, and it's just like kind of taxing, and like it just piles up with like all the mismatch variables that like we can't really control. But with balls, like it's easier to control with the farm balls.
And then I was going to say that for you specifically too is like you said, right? Like just an overall mindset of getting prepared. You're playing in a season, right? Well, I don't feel great the whole season, right? There's times where my swing feels terrible, right? And so you're in the middle of the season and you're like, man, like let's say I just faced Nyjah twice this last weekend, and then also too, on top of that, the weekend before, I faced this, this other pitcher and these other things, and like, like I'm not feeling great like right now, right? And so, from the mental side of things, right? If I'm really trying to hone in, it's like, okay, I want to see some velocity, right? But at the same time, one of the things that I hated playing against machine and that's why I kind of like came up where like we started going more this direction, is like obviously like it's not some random guy, like you said, it's not some random company making balls. It's like one, I'm a coach. Two, like in my head, I'm still a player, right? Like in my head, right? Like when I'm training and I want to see velocity and I'm trying to, like, if it's creating a certain shape that gives me a lot of trouble, let's say it's like a curveball that's coming into me or, whatever that is, right? If that pitch specifically is something I really want to work on, right? Well, if I can get that consistent over and over again, right? Well, then I can take out the variables where it's like this sporadic different pitch every time. Because, pitchers aren't like that either, right? Generally, they throw the general shape over and over again, and there's certain shapes that they can't create, right?
Yeah.
And so because of that, I could specifically work on, like, if this girl creates this shape of pitch, I can create that shape of that pitch and see it over and over again.
Yeah.
And then now I'm just working on me. Like, what do I need to do, right? But also mentally, it becomes super important because, again, like I've already been failing. The last thing I want to do is go pregame, go hit off this machine. It also carves me up. And then I'm right back in the game, and then I'm getting carved again. And it's like, like so much of hitting is like also confidence, like going up there and being like, like I'm the best hitter on this field right now. And also on top of that, like, again, just feeling so confident in what I'm able to do, where sometimes if I, for example, if I went pregame, I had this happen to me many times when I play, is we would do like machine or something like that, right?
Yeah.
During machine, they're like, oh, well, this guy's gonna be a lefty with a slider, blah, blah, blah. And then so we're facing that, right? And I just get carved all through pregame, right? And then, you get out on the field and the same thing, right? You get carved again or, whatever. And, again, a lot of that for me mentally was like, there's a time and a place where like I want to feel good. I want to be confident going into the game where it's like I feel like my swing's where I want it to be. Yeah. And when my swing's where I want it to be, I can go and hit really elite pitching. I don't always need to hit machine or a live arm to get my swing right. Yeah. And back in the day, people forget about this all the time. Back in the day, we didn't have machines. Mm-hmm. No one had machines. Like that wasn't even an option. And there was these elite hitters still, right? So it's like, there's many MLB All-Stars, there's Hall of Famers that never hit off a machine their entire career, right? And we're really elite hitters that we look at, right? Like Babe Ruth wasn't hitting off a hack attack, right? So it's just like now, and then some people will argue that though too. They'll argue like, well, Babe Ruth didn't need to do this or blah, blah, blah. And it's like, well, yeah, but we also used to make houses with like a hammer and a nail, but like now we use nail guns. It's okay. Like we can get places better. We can, again, we do have some of this technology now, or we do have, like the balls that we have now. When I was younger, they didn't exist, right? Like we were shooting normal baseballs most of the time and they were going all over the place and I'd take one off the ribs or, or whatever. Right. So I do think, and what I wanted you to kind of touch on, with that as well is, for like younger hitters, right? And now that you've had a year going into college, that transition from club ball, right? High school ball, club ball I always consider higher than high school ball most of the time. In transitioning to college, that's a massive gap. Yeah. It's not one level above. It's like 10 levels above. Yeah. Well, from playing club ball. Why don't you kind of talk about that as well, as like the mental side of going from, going from club ball going into like your first year at college.
Okay. Yeah. Being a hitter in Hawaii, like you don't have that many like great pitchers. Like we have you don't have 10 Nijas just running around.
We
don't just got like mini Nijas running around. Like we got really good position players, but we never had like an elite pitcher that we could hit off of. And like that kind of affected me when I went into club ball. Yeah. And like my first year of college is that you don't get to have that extra like room to train with like an elite pitcher. And I played on Firecrackers Rico. So we played the great, like good competition throughout our summers. And like that helped me a lot, but I was still a step behind kind of from like the girls that did have elite pitchers in high school. Yep. And so when I went into college, it was kind of hard, but a lot of like it's less about like your technique in college. It's less about your technique. It's more about your mentality and like the belief and the confidence you have going into the box. Because college pitchers are great. That's why they're there. Like they're playing Division I or like Division II because they're good, because they have the opportunity to. Yeah. And I feel like everyone's kind of at the same level. You'll have like older girls or like younger freshmen. And it's like, what sets you apart from like a good average hitter to being a great hitter. It's just your belief. Like you have to have the belief that you can do it. And like a lot of what gives me belief is the people that I surround myself with. Yeah. It's like my coaches encourage me and uplift me, and my teammates are like always encouraging. Like it makes me have belief in myself, and it helps with my confidence when I go into the box. And it's like just this sense of trust that your coaches have on you, throwing you in a situation, or like, I mean, even though I didn't have the best training coming up, it's like you go in there and you just have a dog mentality. Like you just go in there and battle, like regardless of what happens, like put it out there.
Yeah. No, I was going to bring that up too, because specifically, because I've seen this happen so many times with it as well, and I think it will help so many other players. And I've been bringing this up more and more. Like when your last year before, like in club ball, like what would you say, if you can remember, do you remember what your average was when your last year that you played club ball?
Yeah, I'm not really a numbers girl. Like I haven't looked at my like batting average from this past year. I just like refuse to. Like I don't need to. Like I know who I am. Like
that's good.
I'm not gonna measure my confidence or like my skill on a bunch of numbers. Like I'm a pretty nerd. Like I'm pretty nerdy. Usually I do look at that thing, but I feel like if it's not what I want to see, and I'm a kind of a high expectations for myself,
for sure.
And if it's not that, then it's like kind of like, but like so I just don't like set myself up for that, even though like it encourages me to do more. I mean, I'm always encouraged to do more, so that one kind of lights a fire under. But I feel like I let off my senior year for my club team, so I was pretty consistent, I would say. Like singles, doubles, I was never like a home run hitter. It would come once in a while, but like I was just like the runner that got on. And like I feel like I was talking to my coach after my club season ended, and he was like, I kind of liked you up there for your like presence. Like I wasn't someone that was going to back down from a challenge. And I just feel like different coaches have different spots for their leadoffs. Like you can have a lefty slapper who's always going to get on. Or like someone who takes a lot of pitches. Or like you have that person who's like, they're there and it's like, whoa. Like that's a statement for the whole game. Like you're the first batter for the team. And then the team and the coaches look at you and you're like, oh, this is what we're going to expect. Like, so I'm not sure. I'd never really looked at my numbers, but.
And the only reason I was bringing it up is a lot of times, and again, literally to what you're saying, is I've seen so many girls lose confidence from going like, okay, when I play club ball, I batted like 450 or whatever, right? And it's like, okay, great. And then they get in college, and their first year they bat like 240, 260, whatever, somewhere 270, somewhere in this thing, and they're like, I've never hit this low in my life. Like, and they have this thing, right? But it's like literally, like you said, okay, even if I'm playing at the highest level of club ball, okay, you're still not facing a Division I Power 5 ace. 2 games out of 3 this weekend. And then if you go, for example, because I've gotten to see so many SEC games as well, it's like, if you're facing Tennessee and they got 2 pitchers that are going to be, fighting for pitcher of the year, it's like, there's no let up, right? Like even your second day, right? It's very different from baseball, where pitchers are so vital for a team's success in softball comparatively to baseball, because you're going to see this person like once every 5 days or 4 days or whatever. But in softball, it's like, I'm going to see this girl again, literally in 2 days from now. And also too, she might close tomorrow. Like, like we'll see how it goes, and it matters where we're at in the year. And so the reason I was just bringing that up is literally, like you said, and I'm happy that you kind of brought that piece up, because that's kind of like where I was going, is that you can't base your things just off of pure results, because when it comes off of just your batting average or your stats or any of those things, because it really is more about, and you know this because especially playing from the defensive side of things, but you literally brought up 2 other things that are way more important, is one, the mentality you bring to your team. And if you think about, I was talking about this the other day, but okay, let's say I have 4 bats today, well, that would be pushing it for, softball, most likely 3, or, unless you're like top of the lineup, like, 1 or something. But even with that, right? Like, okay, if I get 3 at bats today, let's say on average, I probably get, 2 swings in a bat on average, right? Sometimes I get 4 swings in a bat. Sometimes I get 0, right? Like
Yeah.
I was just watching, going back into the dugout, or I walked, right? Okay, so if I get 2 swings on average in a bat, right? I get 3 at bats a day, 6 swings. Okay, well, how long does it take me to take 6 swings?
Yeah.
It's like probably 6 seconds,
Yeah.
right? So, okay, that's 6 seconds of my 2-hour softball game,
Yeah.
right? 2+ hour softball game, right? Sometimes less, matters how good the pitching is. But, you look at that and you go, okay, so I'm going to let 6 seconds of my day dictate my confidence for the entire, like who I am, right? The entire length of these 2 hours, right? And then also all the other things. Like I've seen players like, again, like Paige, like for example, right? It's like she brings so much to her team. It's not just, again, it's not like she's some supreme like home run hitter or all these other things, but like there's a mentality that she brings, that like that grinder, that that fighter, that she's,
Never
every
let up.
ball that's hit on the ground, like I'm a wall, I'm going to go get everything. All these things, right? And there's so much, and then like a captain and all these things that, like she brings to the game, rather than just these small moments in time. And, also, again, for example, where I am today is not where I'm going to be a senior or whatever, right? And and I got to be careful not to internalize like these stats or my results and get into this place where like I let it identify me.
Yeah.
Because in reality, like like I'm gonna have to adapt and overcome.
Yeah.
And at every level I've had to adapt and overcome, right? And it is a massive jump to go from club ball to like pack softball. RIP to the pack. But to pack softball and making that jump and having to see these elite pitchers over and over and over and over again, and then letting that dictate like how good did I think that I am, when in reality like like I've never seen someone go to that level and like hit better. They usually hit worse. I mean,
Yeah.
again, there's not too many people that hit better than they did in their club ball. I haven't even seen one that I've trained. I've trained thousands of athletes where it's like when they go from club into their college sport, especially at that level, right?
Yeah.
If you went to some mid-major, some D2, something like that, but if you're going to the top 1% or even less than 1% at your guys' level, is like, that it's very difficult, right? And so, I was going to bring that up because I think like you kind of already touched on that, is how did you learn, what did you learn from walking in first day as a freshman to now? Like, what would you have given yourself perspective on that you learned throughout this, your first year in college?
That I've learned. Walking in as a freshman, like, you're super timid, but then you got some who are also like I'm made to be here. Like those who fit the shoe. And like I was kind of both, half and half. Like I was timid. I knew my place. Like I was a freshman. Like I'm gonna go clean up or something. But then I also like had a confidence coming in from club softball. It's like I don't know, it's a mindset that you got to have when you go into college, because if you don't have a I'm good and I'm going to do this mindset, then it's like everyone's going to kind of just run you over, like because going into college you need to have a growth mindset that's like, but also have confidence in yourself. And like going off of that, it's like when you're in a game you only get maybe 3 at bats, like on a lucky day, and you get an average of 2 swings, maybe an at bat, but like what I do in my first at bat doesn't identify me. And I know a lot of players who like make their sport their identity, and it's like, oh, I just struck out, and I'm all sorry, like poor, and I'm like, dude, like it's not that deep, like it's you'll have another chance, and like we're gonna need you for that next chance, like you're gonna come up big in this next moment, like it's a matter of like flushing it, like literally just letting it go and knowing that you're gonna do it, like you're gonna do it the next time. Like I feel like a lot of young athletes, or like even in college, like you come up in a big situation, you're like I gotta do this, man, like I can't fail, but you can't even think that, like you can't even think that you're not gonna do it. Like you have to have a mindset. And like I've come up in big moments in my career, like my first year, my career for so far, and like it's that having that belief. Like, obviously you'll have your back of the head thoughts like going through, but it's what you bring to the table right now is what is going to happen. Like the positivity that your teammates and your coaches bring to you is what's going to happen. And you basically literally like trick yourself if you're having a hard time to like do it. Like, it's a lot of what we do in our swings and in our at bats is mental. Yeah. And it's less about your technique in the game. Yeah. It's about doing and picking good pitches. And it's like, that'll come.
Yeah. No, I really loved, I've said it before on our podcast, but I also just purely more so I wanted to share it with you too, was, Allie Newland, when she was facing, LSU was playing, Stanford, and she was facing Nyjah, right? Well, like Nyjah is really difficult against lefties. Like, she dices them up. Like, she dices everybody up, but she really dices lefties up, right? Rise ball, like, just, getting up and out on them. They get, really diced. So she faced, Allie comes up, again, was one of the top players in the country this year. She comes up against Nyjah, like 3 pitches, bam, 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 swings through everything, go back to the dugout, right? Look, her body language wasn't great.
Happens to the best of us.
Yeah. Body language wasn't great. Going back to the dugout, you could tell she was like almost felt a little defeated. And then she comes up her next at bat and then like hits a 3-run jack, right? And so I asked her, and I'm like, yo, like, how did you mentally, reset to get yourself better? You have to go, again, this girl has a .5 ERA in the entire country, right? She's one of the top pitchers in the country, if not the best pitcher in the country right now. And so, like, with that, like, how did you reset to come back out there and be a competitor, right? And like, how did you do that, right? And she was just like, she was giving credit to like some of her coaches and her teammates and things that like got her mind back, right? But one of the things that she also just told herself too as well, it's like, again, like, I've done enough work to trust my work over my results, right? Like, basically, and how I internalize that and like adding my stack on top of that, right, is like, for example, I can bring Mike Trout out there. Nyjah going to strike Trout out at some point, right? Like, if it's not, if it's not the first at bat, right? Like, so if that's the case, right? If the best in the world, that, one of the best hitters that is in our generation, right? Maybe one of the best hitters to ever play baseball, right, is going to strike out sometimes against this pitcher, right? Because like you said, she's the me, right? On the other side, she's the girl that has trained her whole life and has done all this to get here and like all these other things too. She's good too, right? And so, again, if I'm always successful, that's like, it's unrealistic to think that she's never going to be successful when like she is also one of the top players in the world, right? And so instead, like you said, it's more of, it's like, we're going to go into battle here and like, you're going to win some and I'm going to win some, but every time I show up, I got to be ready to try to win, right? And so I can't let the results of one battle or one pitch, or I swung and missed at a pitch that I normally would crush, or, all those little thoughts that slide into my head that start to, take away from my performance, right? Or get me out of my mindset to battle. Is being able to mentally like reset there, right? And go in every single time and fight every single pitch and be like, I'm not giving you nothing, right? Like you're going to have to earn every pitch off of me. And also too, on top of that, like, I don't care if I'm batting 100 or if I'm batting 900, right? Like, I'm not giving you a pitch, And so, and I'm not letting you get a freebie on me where, cause I swung and missed at the pitch before. Okay. I swung and missed on that. What does last pitch have to do with this pitch? Yep. Nothing. What does last at bat have to do with this at bat? Like, you're more tired than you were an hour ago, right? Like, you might have thrown 3 perfect pitches against me before. Now, if you miss by an inch,
try again.
Yeah, if you miss by an inch, like, I might hammer you for a homer, right? Yeah. Like, because again, I'm one of the best in the world too, And so I think, along with that is like, kind of adding on to what you were saying is like, you can't sit there and identify with and it's happened time and time again throughout all of sports, right? Where, especially in the postseason, you see it a ton where, this girl might have batted 200 this whole year, but then she hits a walk-off jack, or she, she's facing one of the best pitchers in the country or doing whatever. And it never, again, at the end of the day, my numbers on the same side of that, like, yes, they're feedback. For sure. I'm not sitting there just completely ignoring them, but also too, that's all they are. Like, they're feedback for me. And it's like, okay, hey, like, again, I am swinging and missing on rise balls up and out a lot, or, curves, in off the plate or something like that. Like, I keep getting jammed, or, all these things, right? They're feedback for me, right? And it's ways for me to get better with what I'm going to actually train, but it's not, defining that, like, again, like, I'm worth less, right? Or I'm again, my production is based on like how I should feel about myself, confidence wise, because you guys are not only take softball completely out of it, right? But who you guys also are is just people. Like, again, there's plenty of people in the world that can't do what you guys do, and they're not worthless, Yeah. So even if you were not very good at softball, right, which you're not, right, you're pretty damn good at softball, right, is that there's a lot of people in the world that are not good at that sport, and they have a lot of value in what they bring, and in all the ways that you guys contribute to the world too, in so many different ways. And so I think that that's like, just a big thing too, as well as like you, as you mentioned, right, is just like softball is something that I do. It's something, it's fun. It's my passion. It's all these other things. Right. But you can't get into the mindset as a hitter where it's like, again, like, oh, I hit good today. So I'm good, and then, oh, I, went 0 for 3 today with 3 Ks. So I'm bad. And I'm, I'm not a good hitter and all these other things. I struck out 3 times today and I'm terrible. Right. Yeah. If you get like that, that's what bad hitters do. Where, good hitters are every day they're back, every pitch they're back and they're resetting, and, a lot of that too.
I feel like good hitters, like they have like a flip, like they have a switch that they're going to flip when like you get 7 seconds after you strike out, like looking 3 times. It's like probably one of the worst feelings in baseball and softball. Like it's terrible, but like you get like a few seconds to yourself to just acknowledge that happened. And then you got to flip a switch. Sometime you still got to go back out on defense. You got to catch a ball. Like, your team still needs you, and I think being a team sport allows you to like have another chance. And it's not like basketball where you have that chance like instantly to get back on defense to steal the ball. But like you gotta wait, soak in it, like feel it, or whatever. Like maybe even the next day, like you soak in that feeling. But it's just a matter of like shoving it and like just powering through it, because if you don't power through it, it's just gonna eat you up, eat you alive. Like our team focuses a lot on just like acknowledging your feelings and like feeling your feel. And like once you feel it, like at one point in time, you just gotta get over it. Like it happens to everyone. Like you're not the only person who's looked at 3 strikes down the middle. Like, we just focus a lot on just acknowledging and just flushing.
And I think it's just like you said, right? It's like I got to acknowledge it, but at the same time, like, okay, so after my emotions, then what, right? What would I have to do anyways? Well, it's like, all right, I'd have to make an adjustment, right? I'm making an adjustment, or I'm going to try to work on something, or, all this thing. It won't be like, I think one of the things with performance and evaluating performance, we can get stuck into the thing where we feel like this failure is final. Right. Well, this is, it will always be like this. I'll always swing and miss on this pitch. I'll always be this good. When, that's silly, because we've all gotten better, right? When you were 5 to now, you're a way better softball player, right? But again, sometimes we start to forget that at the highest level is like, even now, like I can get better too, right? And I can work on these things, and year over year, I can be a better player. Day over day, pitch to pitch, I can be a better player. And if I get on my own way and stop feeling like this is a final destination for me right now and how good I am right now on this hill that I'm on, I'm trying to defend how good of a player I am, rather than being like, no, I'm getting better every day, and I'm using these at bats to get better. And I'm like, right now, you should be a better softball player today than you were your first year in college, like when you first came into college, just because you now have all this experience, right, that you can utilize and go, well, I'm more prepared now than I was a year ago, and I think if, you can stay in that mindset, like your performance is going to reflect a lot more of naturally what you're actually capable of as a player, because you're able to like just free yourself up too and just, play rather than, being tied up in all those things.
I feel like going through like my first year in college and like going into my second year, having this experience, it kind of makes me excited to go back to see what I'm capable of. And it gets better through the years. Like when I'm a senior, I'm going to be having all of this experience, and it's just going to help you get better. And like using your at bats, like even if you fail, like using it to the best of your ability to get better and to train, to look it over, see what you could have worked on, and like think about what was going through your head in that very moment, and see how you can like switch something, like just a small cue for you to just be 1% better than you were in that at bat to your next at bat.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That
No, I think
helps.
it's good. I just kind of wrap us up. I think one of the things, I was just interested for you to also, share kind of from that other end of things. What would you say right now? I know it's been a short period of time, and I'm just interested in what you would say. If you had to pick your biggest takeaway from training with us so far, what has been your number one thing you're like, okay, that's what I would say. It was like, it's been the most useful so far for you to pick up.
Most useful, I feel like not losing my power in every way. Like, I have a problem with like letting my back knee and losing my stability.
Mm-hmm.
So I kind of it kind of goes in.
Yeah.
But then also power in every way, because sometimes my front knee would come in and lose tension in my
your middle.
my middle.
Yeah.
So like my rubber bands wouldn't have tension.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
that reduces the power that I have into the ball.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I would say power, like not losing yourself, just having a stable foundation in your body and just like using that to the best of your ability in every single way. Like, it doesn't have to be just my rubber band. Like the power that I create from my back hip,
Yeah, no, and an old school way of saying that too, just like if you can picture kind of what she's talking about, is like creating leverage. It's like an old school term people would say all the time. It's like, oh, like I got to be in a leverage position, right? And it's like, yeah, like in a spot where you can create a lot of force, you're not, putting yourself in bad positions to be able to like fire from, and some of that as well. But anyways, cool. I'll pray us out real quick, and then we'll wrap. But yeah, let's do it. Okay. Heavenly Father, God, we just thank you so much for all the ways that you continue to work through Shonty, and all the ways that you continue to utilize us, God, to do your will. And we just ask that you protect her throughout her season this year, and that you help her understand her identity within you, and understand all the things that you have for her, and that the best is yet to come. And then we just pray as well, God, that you continue to open all of our eyes to all the things that you're doing in the world and all the ways that you're moving. And we just pray all these things in Jesus' mighty name. Amen.
Amen.
Well, until next time, Farm System out.